everyone. We'll get started. My name is Melanie Stokes. I'm the Director of School Counseling and Student Support Services. I recognize some faces, so thank you so much for coming. I am K through 12, so sometimes I get to recognize some faces from that too. It's going to be a lot of information tonight, so don't feel overwhelmed by it. You can always call the counselors, ask some questions or anything that you need. Also, I don't know if everyone knows, but we have our newsletter that goes out, so always there's scholarships on there and different things that you can access on there. So, keeping up on that, SAT information, PSAT information, and they'll go into that a little further. But first, I just kind of want to introduce everyone. I'm going to have them introduce themselves because we have some new counselors, so I figured it's nice sometimes to put a name to a face. So, go ahead.
Hi everyone, my name is Miss K, long last name Kumaniecka, so if your child says their counselor is Miss K, that's me. This is my first school year here. I'm also a proud alum, so I'm really excited to work with the community here.
My name is Miss Tonelli. I'm also a school counselor here. I have a dual role though, so I'm a school counselor and then I'm also the student assistance counselor. And I started in November and I'm also an alumni of Lawrence High School. So I have about 31 freshmen and 31 juniors that I'm going to follow through with. So once my kids graduate next year, I'll be starting over with a new group of freshmen. I'll turn it over to our other new counselor.
Hi, I'm Mr. Donnelly. I'm working with the end of the alphabet. It's my first year in district, and it's been awesome so far. Super excited to go.
Hello everybody, my name is Alex Grajunas. I have been a teacher at Lawrence for a little bit and now I've been a counselor for the last few years. But it's been very, very exciting getting to see and work with students from a very different side of things. So looking forward to speaking with you all today.
Hi, I'm Christian D'Angelo. It's my second year in the district. Nice to meet you all. Thanks for coming.
Mr. D'Angelo's our veteran teacher, because I've been here 12 years, so I know he's not been here 2 years. But my name's Alexa Gonzalez. I tend to have like second, fifth of students in terms of their last name. So if like your kid has a last name with like a G, F, G, I'm right around there. So yeah, I've been here 12 years, and I'm excited to share some great information with you guys tonight. And
my part of the alphabet is in the middle. Don't ask me what letters. It's different for every grade.
Yeah.
So ask your student. It's the best way to go.
So I believe Mr. K, are you the first presenter?
Yeah, for the timeline.
And feel free, it's a smaller group, so if you have any questions throughout the whole thing, feel free, raise your hand, we can go over things, but it can be a little more laid back.
So today we're going to be talking about the college planning timeline, speaking a little bit about the SAT, the ACT, and the differences between the two. We're going to talk a little bit about Naviance. Every student has Naviance access, so it'll be important that you get a sense of what's available there, so your student also knows what's available there. We'll talk to you about letters of recommendation, this concept of demonstrated interest, the COMMAT, which is a common way for students to apply to schools, the different admission types and all the various acronyms that go along with that, Mercer County Community College, and we'll also talk about our College Boot Camp, which is a program that's offered in August. All right, so the first thing that I would like to speak to you all about is this college planning timeline. So if we're starting in the winter, spring moments, you're all here. So first of all, that's like fantastic. That should be at the top of this list. One thing that we do want to put on everybody's timeline, especially for our juniors, is this concept of if you are attending the school that you want to submit an SAT or an ACT for, or it's accepted, we do suggest that students start looking at that registration if they have not already registered. One thing I want to caution you all, usually the registration is about a month in advance of the test date. So if I had a I think it's May 3rd or May 6th, May 3rd. So a May 3rd SAT would have registration opening up around like early April, let's say. Now, you don't necessarily need to register in early April, but what you don't want to happen is you pop open the College Board website, you see, oh great, I can take it at Notre Dame, let's say, that's a testing site sometimes. And then you let a few weeks trickle, and then you say, okay, I want to register now. And then you find out that, well, that SAT date is full there, but you can go to King of Prussia. It's awful. So if you know that you want to have an SAT on a specific day, we definitely encourage you to register as early as possible, whether it's the SAT or the ACT. It seems obvious, but we do really encourage students to do well in school. One of the biggest markers for what colleges are looking for is obviously they want to see your transcript, but they also want to see most recent grades. And for students applying senior year, that would be their junior year. So we really want our students to focus on their academics, make sure they're doing well, deepen their exploration of career interests and possible majors. You know, this happens when we're sitting down with them talking about our schedules for next year. What are some things that you're interested in? Trying to build a schedule that's as well-rounded as possible. It does feel early, but we do encourage students to start to begin that college search. There's a lot of built-in opportunities in their junior year between spring break, between the summer entering senior year. We want to encourage students to be taking advantage of that time as much as possible. So it's never really too early to kind of begin that process, especially as students start to get an idea of what are the things that, hey, I'm really interested in this, or hey, I feel like I'm strong at this. These might be places that we want to encourage them to visit. We encourage our students to draft a well-rounded college list. We talk about this idea of three tiers of schools, so to speak. We have our target schools, which are the schools that we feel, you know, we're in like maybe that middle 50% of that class. Our reach schools where, you know, maybe the top 15%, maybe we're going to get in. It's possible that we're not, but we want to, you know, see where we're going to go. And then we have our safety schools, which are schools that we feel comfortable going to, and also that we feel comfortable applying to, and feel like we're going to be successful. I do also encourage the students their junior year to start thinking about who you want to ask for your letter of recommendation. As a teacher, I would have students sometimes come up to me in November of their senior year and say, hey, Mr. K, could you write me a letter of recommendation? And I'm always happy to do it, but sometimes it's really difficult because this is a student that I taught their junior year, and so I'm trying to think back about some of the assignments and some of the things that they did. If that student had asked me, let's say June of their senior year, I could start to almost mentally build that letter together, and then by the time that they more formally ask me in their senior year, I'm like, yeah, I'm ready to go. So we do encourage students to think about, hey, who would be a good person to ask? Who's going to tell your story? Who is going to, you know, put that stamp of approval that we want on that college application? And then by the end of their junior year, actually go ahead and ask them. So, hey, when I request you later, would that be possible for you to do that? We'll do the same. We do encourage students to start to complete their brag sheet. We ask students to almost like build a type of resume. No problem.
Can I add real quick?
Yeah.
We will be posting this on the website, so you don't have to worry about being able to see it perfectly. So it is also being taped, so the tape will be on the website, and so will the presentation. So you can always go back and look at it if you need it.
We do encourage students to complete that brag sheet. It's almost like a resume of all the things that, you know, they want to be maybe highlighted on that letter of recommendation. It's very helpful for us to go through. As counselors, we know a little bit of their story, but we can't know possibly everything. And then to demonstrate interest, if there's colleges that you're interested in, you know, getting on their mailing list, reaching out to them, all these things, they're very small, but if you never know if it's going to make the difference between a good decision or a decision that you might not want to receive. Over the summer, we encourage students to really start to think about their Common App essay. Those prompts were posted at the end of February. So students can look and see, you know, what are the sample essays that I could possibly write. And there's about 7 prompts. Typically, they have to write answer one of the prompts. But they can start to think, okay, now that I'm seeing this, what are some things that what are some ways I might want to go with this? Almost like pre-plan it in their head. We do encourage them to revisit their colleges, refine that list, really start to use Naviance, use their resources to, you know, set up those tiers of schools, create a Common App account, make sure that anything they should have done already, they have not done yet, they have a chance to do that. And then one thing that we really, really encourage our students to do, attend that college boot camp at LHS. It's offered the first week in August. We do ask students to pre-register for it, so we know about how many to expect. But we walk them through the Common App application process. Typically, there's a panel of people coming in from various colleges to talk about things like financial aid, suggestions for the essay, stuff like that. We do find it to be, it's an informative, it's kind of a lot for a 4-hour after morning. But we do find it to be really, really helpful for our students. Thank you all for listening. Do you have any questions? Yes?
Are there allowances for unexcused absences to attend college visits?
Yes, I believe we have, thank you, I was like, I knew there was a number. We have 3 absences that would be excused if you were visiting the college. We do ask students to visit like the Office of Admissions and kind of ask for some documentation, you know, just explaining my son or daughter was visiting school on this day. This is like it's a pretty common thing, so it's not gonna like be an ask that they're gonna say, oh, nobody's ever asked us for this before.
For a year.
I believe it's junior and senior year.
3 junior year, 3 senior. So you can use
Yeah.
3 this year and 3 next year.
Thank you. Any other questions? Great. Thank you so much.
So anybody who hasn't signed in yet, if we could get a sign-in sheet to those people, just a show of hands if you haven't signed in, student name and parent email address. Thank you. So we're going to talk a little bit about SAT and ACT. I'm going to send around a handout that's a pretty clean comparison between the 2 exams. Just for your reference, I would say the biggest point of discussion since the pandemic, really, is whether or not the exam is still required, or whether it's optional, or even the schools that have gone test-free. So it's always been a requirement, I would say, for most colleges prior to the pandemic. And then during the pandemic, since no one could get into the testing centers, all schools had to go test-free, basically, but optional. And then most schools stayed optional when we came out of the pandemic. Now we're about 80% optional. So all 4-year colleges in the country, about 80% of them remain optional. We have seen a gradual, very slow trend towards requiring it again, and that happens to be primarily the most selective schools in the country have gone back to requiring test scores. We think it's a good idea to take an exam. First of all, because it gives you the opportunity to access some scholarship money that schools may be awarding for exceptionally high ACT or SAT scores. But it also is another point of data that schools get to evaluate the students on. So without that test score, everything else has to be stronger. So we say take an exam, and if you don't like your score, if it doesn't fit really the average accepted score for the schools you're considering, then you don't have to send it. But it's a good idea to have the scores. And again, the presentation is going to be available, so you'll see some websites that we post in there. Here are the remaining SAT exams for this year. Right there, sorry. So you'll see that there's, for any exam that you see there, the deadline is 2 weeks prior to the actual exam. So when we say try to register early, there's a lot of reasons for doing that. Number one is to get a spot and to get your spot of choice. The May exam, the May 3rd exam, will actually be held here at Lawrence. So you may want to make a note of that. Otherwise, all of the exams are in our area, but that one's one of the 2 remaining ones for this academic year will be at Lawrence, yes.
So we registered our son for May 3rd, but if we didn't have the Lawrence location, we don't have an alternate, and we switch for it, so it is
Ms. K.
What happened is we had to reset up our site. So we had to, it went on a little bit later because our last, the person who oversaw it before retired. So you could probably call College Board and ask them. I know they have let students do it in the past. I know it's a little tighter right now because of the online testing, but they should allow you to transfer. So you would have to call them and ask.
And
Exactly, the only dates are going to be at Lawrence?
The beginning of next year, we're also going to have it in October.
so these are the confirmed dates for next school year, and I've been told that the October 4th one for sure is going to be here at our school. Yep.
What's the latest that you can take it to be in line with, like, when does the scores come back and to be in line with applying, let's say, regular decisions?
Yeah, it's a good question. I would say, plan for about a month to turn the score around and be available in your College Board account. It's one of those pieces of data, again, that colleges are willing to, have a little bit of flexibility with. And the main point is to apply, send your application by the deadline. And as long as you've sent your application by the deadline, they will remind you over and over again about what they still need before they decide to close your application. That's the last thing they want to do.
So before they, I can say.
So the question was, what's the latest point in time you should be taking an SAT or an ACT to be able to send your scores to a college that you're applying regular decision? So, plan for about a month, turn around and get your scores back.
And if your child is applying early, I would shoot to have them do it on the August 23rd date. Just because there's so much else going on that month prior to, the first, usually there's Rutgers has an early deadline in October, right? And then the rest of your early deadlines will be around November. So it just gets very hectic, and it just adds another layer of stress if they're still having to prep for the SAT or something like that. So just study over the summer and hit that August date before school even starts, and hopefully you're done. And then if you're not done, then you have another shot at it if you need it in October, but that's just kind of a good goal.
Your school is not September.
No, we'll be testing, you said October, right? So we'll have an October session next year, but not, you'll have to go to like Notre Dame or another location, wherever they're having it that month.
So a couple other notes about ACT, SAT. There are free test prep tools in both exams. And for SAT, you'll see you have access to Khan Academy. And there's a Blue Book app that you'll be able to actually take timed prep. So, when we meet with the kids individually to go over this information, they get this in a little bit more depth. An ACT uses Kaplan test prep. There's also the site that you see there that I posted under the test optional and test free. Fair Test is where we get this data, and they do a pretty good job of updating that and keeping it pretty current in terms of what schools are, and it's a detailed list, long list of colleges, and their test policy is clearly noted by the college. So that's a great site to reference to find out whether or not your child's colleges that they're targeting, what their testing policy is. So, if you know that you're applying only to test optional schools and it's going to stay that way, then that's another consideration as to whether or not to take an SAT or an ACT. But just to stay flexible, we recommend trying to take an exam.
Do you recommend one over the other, or should students take both?
I
or
don't.
does it matter?
I mean, when I first started here 2 years ago, it was described to me as one is Coke and one is Pepsi. So colleges really have no preference as to, what test you take. The preference is going to really come into play with your student. And you'll see the comparison that I sent around. Typically, and, when we try to break it down for the kids, I like to say that, the SAT is a reasoning test, which just means that you may know the item. You may know the answer, right? But the answers that you have to select from are so similar that you have to know it even colder. Whereas the ACT is more straightforward, right? It's not considered a reasoning test. So, and PSAT is a good barometer, because your students are going to take the PSAT, most of them, in 10th and 11th grade. And if you see your score is really not even approaching where you would like it to be, then you may want to consider taking the ACT, because maybe the SAT is just not a good format for your student. Yep.
I read in the bigger handout on the SAT about that a student has to be approved for accommodations.
Yes.
How does that work?
Well, we have interesting that you say that, because I want to introduce who is known as our TAC here at Lawrence High School, Mr. Krajunas.
So any student who has accommodations that are in place already, whether it's for the SAT or the ACT, can reach out to us, and then we can make sure that's set up. It's not as simple as doing something like if I was needing to set up accommodations for my English class, for instance. Because we're having to deal with the outside agency, these things do take time. There sometimes is like a back and forth process. So we do ask that if you are feeling like you want to have those accommodations set up, this would be for a student who already receives them for some documented reason. Please let us know as soon as you can so that we can work on getting that set up. So that way it's not, April 1st and we have to take a test on April 3rd and we're like kind of sweating it. We don't want that for anybody either. Is that helpful?
Thank you.
It could take up the sections. Thank you.
And while Mr. Angelo's doing the Naviance stuff, did you mention fee waivers? So if any family is eligible for free or reduced lunch, just make sure that you reach out to your child's counselor, because we can provide a fee waiver for not just taking the SAT or the ACT, but also when you're completing your college applications. Each application has a fee, and it can get really, really pricey. If you visit a college, you can maybe ask for a fee waiver. Sometimes they'll give you a fee waiver, just as a thank you for visiting, so you can always ask for that. But students who are eligible for free or reduced lunch do receive a fee waiver from the school, from us, so that they can apply to their colleges without having to pay those fees.
So we're going to jump right into Naviance, which is our college search and eDocs platform. So all students at Lawrence, all active students at Lawrence have a free Naviance account, and we encourage them to use it as much as possible. This is what they'll see when they log in. This is their homepage. I mentioned this earlier, I am using the sign-in sheets to activate all of your parent accounts on Naviance. So just be aware that you'll be getting probably a strange-looking email that is going to be your temporary password to get into the Naviance parent account. So be aware of that and utilize that, because you're going to see what your students see, and you're going to be able to use the features that they're able to use.
What's the subject line?
Good question. I have no idea, but it's going to be strange.
But it comes from NCGPS?
Yes. It's going to have, it's not going to, not LTPS. It's going to say Naviance or Family Connection or something related to that. So it'll be fairly obvious, not too obvious. I'm gonna try and get all of your accounts activated tomorrow. So by the end of the week, fingers crossed. Tell your kids to be good, so I'm not too busy. So this is their homepage, and on the homepage, you'll see two things to bring to your attention. The first thing is this little envelope here will have a little number by it. We send out a fair amount of communication through Naviance, mostly items pertaining to college. So they do get email in Naviance, so they want to check that periodically. And also, right here is a link to our scholarship bulletin, and that is uploaded monthly by Mr. Donnelly. So they want to, particularly next year, they want to scroll through that periodically to see if they, if they meet the criteria for any of the private scholarships posted in those bulletins, and they're welcome to apply to as many as they would like. Obviously there will be some effort to put into it because some require essays and recommendations and transcripts, but if you take the time, you have a chance to get the money. Two tabs next to the home screen, self-discovery and careers, are mostly personality and career inventories. So these are tools meant to match their skills and interests with potential careers that they may want to consider pursuing. They cannot make mistakes. So I encourage our students all the time to use it as much as they possibly can, because the more information they have, especially if they don't have a direction at this point, this can help them. The tabs that we use with our students primarily is the colleges tab. There's an advanced college search on the left here, and in the college search you have 8 different criteria to select from, and we tell the kids to select the criteria that's important to them in terms of what they're looking for in their colleges. Once you're finished selecting the criteria that's important for you, it generates a list of schools that has those things. And then as you scroll through that list, if you choose some schools that appeal to you, they get put in a list of colleges I'm thinking about. So once this list populates, you have 2 different means to compare yourself and the way you stack up with the students being accepted to these schools. So for example, if you click Compare Me, it puts you and your data at the top of your list, and down below are the averages of the schools that are in your list. So you get a nice visual for how you stack up for the schools that you're considering. The other option is to use the scattergrams. So here's another visual. This is a pretty messy graph because there's a ton of applicants to American, so this is not the greatest example. But you appear on this scattergram with your GPA and SAT or ACT score, and the intersection is the average. So wherever you fall in the graph, again, it gives you a nice visual for whether or not you're stacking up well compared to other applicants. Yep.
My son brought this to my attention yesterday, and what was kind of interesting is when we put in all the schools that he was interested in, because he took his SAT once, that scattergram made it seem like he was going to get into every one of them. But then when you go to the chart above, it kind of shows you how many people each year applied from Lawrence and how many people actually got into it, which wasn't many.
Yes.
And also, it didn't correlate with if you go on to the school and just search up what range they're looking for.
That's true.
It didn't, and so he was like, I don't need to take my SAT again. This scattergram showed me I'm going to get in there.
Yeah.
But it really wasn't accurate.
Yeah, so that's a great point. I mean, but
then once he saw the chart above, he's like, I think I'm going to take it now.
yeah. So rest assured, we meet with every single one of your students, and we will never let them think that this is the end-all be-all, right? This is just to give you a ballpark as to whether or not, so you're applying to a school and you have a 2.8 and a 900 SAT, and this is showing you that the average is a 3.8 and a 1300 SAT.
Can I say
Yeah,
something?
sure.
Since schools have gone test optional, I find that the scattergrams are not as helpful because they'll still plot students according to their PSAT scores or SAT scores, but those students might not have set their scores, right? So, but we don't know that. You don't know when looking at those little dots if the students set their scores or not. So really the GPA, average is the most helpful, but the SAT, the school, I don't know. I find that it can be a little deceiving because we don't know who sets scores, who doesn't set scores, and that
So
can.
maybe we should keep this at,
And it's helpful to look.
Yeah, it is
but
helpful.
dig a little deeper.
Yes.
Use it just,
but
just
with that
with a grain of salt.
there, we'll have enough information with the other tabs.
Yeah, oh, for sure, yes, for sure. So a couple more things and points I'm going to make really quickly. Again, in the colleges tab, it was mentioned earlier, demonstrated interest. So that has actually come up blatantly this year, where students that we thought were very, very solid candidates for certain schools were waitlisted. And so when we speak with the colleges, we have heard colleges say they have not visited campus. So visiting campus is a big deal. They want you on their campus. They want to know that you're serious about their school. And when you go to an event, an open house or a tour, they have you sign in. Even easier, if you can't get to campus, we have over 100 colleges come to Lawrence every fall. And in the colleges tab, in the fall, if you click college visits, they're going to be listed here with the date they're coming and the time and a little sign me up button. So when the kids sign up for these visits, we send them a pass and they meet us in the guidance office with the college, where the college collects their information and keeps it on file at the school. Yes?
The recent college visit we had, they specifically said this doesn't have any impact on
Some schools don't.
that it.
Your IVs do not keep demonstrated interest. They don't track it. Things like
Yeah, it's very important.
demonstrated interest is very
Yeah,
important for
because
most.
they are looking at stacks and stacks of files, and they're just looking to pull anyone out and what distinguishes. And they'll tell you we don't do on-campus visits,
Yeah.
and that even makes it more critical that you actually got in.
Yeah.
I will add that like the reps that are coming are designated to this area. So whether it's a local school, we've had the University of Oregon come visit, like their area and their territory is either Mercer County, New Jersey, whatever it is. But that rep is one of the people that are looking at the application. So it's a really great way to not only meet the person that's looking at that application, but show your face and have that interaction with them. So when it comes time for them looking at your application, they know the person that they're reading about. They know the resume, the letter, the GPA. They've had that interaction with that person. So it's a really great way to get your foot in the door. The college reps have been super nice, super helpful. They sometimes even give out phone numbers and emails. So if you have any questions about that specific college, they'll answer it because they're looking to get as much information about the students as possible. Because not everything about the students is always on the application. So those college visits here at the school are a really nice way to let them know a little bit more about the student.
Great point.
Can I say one?
Yes.
Sorry, very quickly. So the school that you mentioned that says doesn't track demonstrated interest, they might not track it in an official way where they're keeping the data. But if you make contact with that admissions counselor and you make repeated contact with that admissions counselor, that matters. And they do keep track of that. The individual counselor, that's kind of the first person that reads the application. decides if it moves on or not. So,
And is it still a personalized experience, or do they have, like, the companies have an ATS system and they just write what's in the resumes electronically, keywords?
Talking about the application review?
has technology changed that process?
Yeah.
I don't think so, not so much.
Really?
Yeah, not so much. I think it's still pair of eyes that actually reads through, yeah.
And did you say it's on, it's Naviance, when it says when the reps are coming to out?
Yes.
What is it again?
College visits right here?
The college, okay, that's when they're coming to Lawrence.
College visits, in the fall, there's nothing in there now because they're all done. But in the fall,
Okay,
they start contacting us and we schedule.
okay.
Couple more points. This is where your students are requesting their recommendations from their teachers. So we advise them to go in, use the colleges tab, click on letters of recommendation, and they're going to get a drop-down menu of all of our teachers. We ask them to select the 2 that they want letters from and submit their requests. And the teachers get their requests, and they also get a link that they're able to upload their letters directly into Naviance.
And you can do this at the end of this year, right?
Closer to the spring, yeah.
Or the school?
Yeah, the school year, spring, summer.
Can the students see the letters?
Well, that's an interesting question.
No, they can't, they're confidential. They have to sign a waiver saying they're not.
Two will cover, 2 recommendations will cover them no matter where they apply. And many schools won't even use 2. Some schools don't even use 1, larger schools. Like Rutgers, for example, doesn't read recommendations. Once they send their recommendation requests, we ask them, because the teachers are going to ask them for their brag sheet. In here, it's called a survey. So they're going to go into About Me, and they're going to click Surveys from our school, and there's the student survey that we refer to as a brag sheet. And there's about 13 questions, all about their high school experience. Should not take them very long, and then we ask them to save it, and then get that survey to their teacher recommended.
Going back to the letters of recommendation,
Yeah.
if you're looking for a letter of recommendation for something outside of school, do you use that same link in Naviance, or is there a different way of doing it?
Great question. So the question is, if you're looking for a recommender outside of Lawrence High School, do you use this? And the answer is no. So the short answer to that is, we ask for a hard copy of their recommendation because they don't have access to our platform. So we mail that separately to the colleges. But we will also say, we repeat this over and over, give the colleges what they're asking for. So if they're asking for 1 teacher and 1 counselor, do not give 3 teachers, a counselor, a coach, and a boss. Do not do that. They won't read it. They have too much to read. They're very transparent about that too when they show up here at school. They say, don't give us more to read than what we ask for. So that's a great question. Is there any more questions?
Yeah, about the
Yes.
recommendation letter, you said we cannot read it, but we will know whether it was submitted by teacher.
Absolutely, yes. You will know when we have the recommendations ready to send. Better yet, you will know when we do not have them.
Yeah.
Right? When we have them, we're sending the materials. Right? But if we're missing something, everybody's going to know about it because the college is going to let us all know, particularly you, that they're missing something.
There is a way to follow up.
Sorry?
There is a way to follow up with the teachers that we are waiting.
Oh, absolutely. Just ask. I mean, they can let us know, and we can kind of run some interference and ask for them. But, kids ask 3-4 times, The reality is many teachers have many recommendations to write, so the earlier you get on their schedule, the better.
So are there like different types of recommendation letters so that students have option to select, I want these from this teacher to go to this college?
There is.
Okay.
So if they need specifics like that, there is a way to do that in Naviance, but it's actually kind of messy, it's easier just to let the counselor know. And then we will send them to let us handle it. When they try to handle it, it kind of messes things up.
Okay.
So just let us know if you want this teacher and this teacher to go to this school, and we'll do that.
Okay, they will have an option.
Yeah.
One more, about the timing. So for early days teachers, the application due deadline is mostly November.
Yeah.
So for that, what would be the appropriate time for students to start asking for that?
Spring.
Now.
Yeah, now, yeah. Well, I mean, it's early. They could ask now.
Now, until summer.
I advise leading into summer break, leading, May, even early June. Yeah. Yes, that's a good point, yeah. Any more questions for me, I'm going to have to charge you guys. I have to move on to the rest of my colleagues here. Thank you all. Any questions, feel free to reach out.
You might start to hear something about a program called SCORE. I'm currently looking at this program. It's a different college program. If we look into that, that will not be your child. That'll be the next following year juniors. It's a Naviance, but it's a different program. So in the event you start hearing things about that, your child will continue to do everything in this. Because since you start that process now, it's not something that we would start to the end of next year. So the juniors next year could possibly be hearing about that program. That is not something you have to worry about. So I just don't want you to hear that and be like, are we doing the right thing? So you should be fine.
So next we're going to speak on demonstrated interest. So a big part of the college process is showing schools that you are interested in applying, that you're considering these schools. So we do encourage, right, if a kid kind of has an idea or they're really passionate about a certain school, definitely apply early. Ms. K, our counselor, will kind of speak on all the different terminology as far as like early action, early decision. I personally, when I went to college, I did early decision because I knew exactly where I wanted to go, and that is where I ended up going. So like for me right now, it was easy. I applied, I knew right away this is where I want to go. Hopefully I'll get it. I did. So like my college process is pretty seamless compared to like a lot of my classmates maybe where they didn't know where they were going, didn't even know how big of a school they wanted to go, if they wanted to stay in state or out of state. And those are all things that we can explore with your child, right, as we meet with them. And then just some other things, right, visit the school. So we do encourage you guys and to like bring your child to the school, set up a visit. They do a lot of like open houses, but also you can always reach out to the school directly and try to set something up. Maybe they'll have you on like a big group tour, or maybe they'll have more of like an individual tour where if your child really knows that they want to do business or nursing or teaching, they may try to set you up with someone already in that program that can really speak to what that program is like. Also attend local information sessions. So like Mr. Angelo spoke on, we do have college visits that occur in the fall, so you just have to have your child log right into Naviance and sign up through there. It is a great way without having to go anywhere to visit with the college, and we have them right in our counseling office, so it's very easy, and then they get a reminder like, hey, don't forget you have this college visit coming up next week with Aubrey or with Rowan, and they usually have to show up, and we do encourage students when they go to these visits to come prepared with questions, like do your research, don't walk in there blind, because then that shows, right, if this is a school that you're passionate about, it shows that you're doing your research, you're looking into it on your end. Follow up with a thank you email to the rep, or again, a question. I think a thank you goes a long way, especially when it's like a personal email. Hey, this is who I am. I came to visit you on this day. Thank you so much for giving me a tour and showing me around. Like, I'm eager to await your decision. Attend webinars and interact with their website. Again, get familiar with the website. Look at all the programs. Look at the costs, dormitories, programs. Maybe your child wants to pursue an undergraduate degree. Right? So those are all things that you kind of have to start doing your own research, but we're also available to help your students as well. And then open emails and use college essays. Again, the more that you can really show like who you are, I think gives you a lot of leverage, right? Because they want diversity. They want people that are involved in all different kinds of things, that are going to be doing all different kinds of majors. So the more you can make yourself stand out, I think it kind of works more in your favor.
I just want to question, what is college essays? You say college essays, what is that?
Yeah, like your personal statements. Yeah. So some schools may have like a direct prompt, like why do you want to go to this school? And so sometimes we do encourage students to like kind of save some of your personal statements in case you do have to reuse them. Because I think for the most part it's like a lot of the same questions. but then they will just throw in like random, very random, funny questions. And then that also is an opportunity, right, to really show your personality and show who you are. Yeah, that's a great question.
Are they using their personal email or the school email?
Yes. Definitely use your personal email because right when they graduate, they're not going to have any more access to those school emails. So definitely for everything college, SAT, college board, use your personal email. Yes.
So something we recommend is for your child to create a separate new email they use just for colleges.
Yeah.
So that way, every communication from all those colleges goes through that one email. It doesn't get lost with all the other junk that always comes to your email. So we encourage just create a new email that the student uses for their college application. It's easier to keep track of.
And be consistent. Use the same email. Same email. And check email.
And
Check their email. They do not check email.
And don't block the
Yeah.
school, there's
So-
kids that have done that.
in terms of that demonstrated interest piece, the schools that do track demonstrated interest, they even make sure they look to see if you've opened their email. So even just clicking on it and opening it can be tracked. So open those emails. And in terms of those college essays, yeah, the child's not going to demonstrate interest in their Common App essay. That's like the general essay that's going to go to all the schools. But a lot of the schools have those college-specific questions like, why Brown, why Penn State, or whatever it might be.
I think I even had a student that was like in 5 words, why do you want the school? Like, that was the first I've ever heard that.
Oh, that's
interesting.
a tough one.
Yeah.
But yeah, just make sure that those like why, whatever college essays are very specific to the college, So if the school, if the kids, if you're traveling in Boston and the kids applying to lots of different schools in Boston, make sure that they're speaking specifically to that school. If I read your essay and you're writing to Boston College, and you also are applying to Boston University, and I'm reading your Boston College essay, and I can basically take Boston College out and plop Boston University into that essay, and it still makes sense, it's not specific enough. It needs to be very clearly written to that university.
So during the college fair in Lawrence, they will be able to make appointments or see when they can go visit the college, correct?
Yes, for the ones in the school, yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
and how many do you have?
There's usually like 2 or 3 a day in the month of September, October, and November. Okay. I'm not going to spend too much time on financial aid bills because we have a financial aid night in the fall when everything is much more applicable. One thing that I really recommend that you do is as your child becomes interested in certain colleges and universities, visit their financial aid page and use that net price calculator, okay, to start getting a sense of what that particular school might be awarding your family in terms of financial aid. It's very, very helpful. At the end of this website, we have some additional resources, and I'll point out a couple of websites that are also really helpful to compare in terms of their typical financial aid packages and things like that. But you will all likely fill out the FAFSA, which is the federal application for student aid. All families are asked to complete that, and it's actually a graduation requirement for the state of New Jersey unless you waive out of it. So in all likelihood, you will all be completing that. That is just for need-based aid. Okay, so a lot of families, if you're like a middle-class kind of working-class family, oftentimes you do not get awarded money on the FAFSA, but you still have to complete it. So that a lot of colleges will use that information to possibly give you more scholarship money. So even if you think you will not qualify for money from the government based off of the FAFSA, you think maybe your income is too high, you're still really recommended to fill it out because a college can still use that information to possibly award you additional money. So make sure that you fill that out. It's supposed to go live October 1st. The last 2 years that has not happened. They went through a whole revamping of the system, which 2 years ago was a hot mess. This year it wasn't as bad, and it was available on December 1st, which was better than the year prior. hopefully they get it together, and it's available October 1st for you guys this year, but, you know, I'd expect some delays, you know, it is the government and all, and this year in particular, it's going to be very interesting just because the Department of Education usually oversees that, and we don't know the future of that right now. So we'll see how it goes. If your child is applying to private schools, a lot of private schools also want families to complete the CSS profile. That is a separate financial aid form, and it's a lot more in-depth. The night that we have in the fall is strictly for information on the FAFSA, and then the New Jersey application for aid, which is called the HISA. So that's the information that you'll get from that presentation. But you will likely, if you're applying to any privates, a lot of privates will ask you to fill out the CSS profile. That application is actually on the College Board website. So, what is it? Yeah, it's very extensive, yeah. So it takes a much deeper dive into your family situation. A lot of private schools have deeper pockets than our public schools in terms of being able to award aid. So in terms of that, just that first point of their net price versus sticker price, you know, think of college similar to how you would think of buying a car, right? You have the sticker price, which is what everyone sees, and that's what the car costs. But in reality, there's a lot of negotiation that can happen. There's a lot of kind of back and forth that can happen. So what each family pays for a particular college is very individualized, okay? Some of it might be, some of the cost might come down because of your family's need, but a lot of times colleges will be able to award you additional monies because of merit, okay? Good grades or a particular skill that your child has, so they're bringing something to the table. Maybe they have a great history of community service that they want to reward. Maybe they need a tuba player in their band, you know, whatever it might be. So don't be scared off by some of these crazy sticker prices that you see on some of these college, for colleges and universities, because a lot of times that's nowhere near what your family's going to pay, okay? So that net price calculator is really helpful to kind of see a ballpark figure of what you might pay. Every college is required, it's required that every college has one. So if you go to each college's financial aid website, it should be there. Okay. And then, yeah, our financial aid night is usually October, I forget, October-ish, you know, is usually when we have it. It's a virtual event, so we really recommend that you just keep an ear out for that and attend that when registration opens up. I think that's all I'm going to say here. And then the next slide, I think, is just some financial aid resources, okay? The end is where I'm going to point out, we have additional links, and I'm going to point out a couple that I find very, very helpful in terms of helping compare schools and compare likely financial aid packages from schools. So I think that's it for now. Who's next? Okay.
So I'm just going to quickly kind of dive into the Common App. Some of you might already have heard of it. Basically, the name of the website or the application is a Common Application. So basically, it's one application for multiple schools. With that being said, it's not that there's just one application for every school that gets sent out. It means it's one website where they can keep track of other applications. Like their demographics get filled out once, but there's different like tabs for each school, and it's easier for them to keep track of. So let's say your child is applying to Rutgers, TCNJ, and Rowan. They don't have to sign into all the different websites. They just log into their Common App account, and it's all there. There they will find the essays if there's additional statements that the college requires. So it's just a great tool. And the way that it's easy to know if a school is a Common App school. When Mr. D'Angelo was showing Naviance, I don't know if you guys noticed, there was like a computer next to the college name. For example, it said American University. And in the screen it said CA. When it says CA, that means that they do take Common App. So that's just something to pay attention to also when they're doing their research on the colleges and you are on Naviance with your child. If it does say Common App, they can do it through Common App, and they don't have to create a separate account with that specific school. For example, I'm just going to say, like Rutgers used to not be on the Common App. They have recently gone to the Common App. So that's just like a few little changes to keep in mind. We also have linked, the link to the website is there, and they can already create a profile with
August 1st.
August 1st, actually, is when it goes live, where they can actually start filling out all the information. And they can add, like, let's say in August, they have a list of 15 schools, and then August 30th, they're like, I want to take 5 out. They can just take them out, and they don't have to submit each application. Like, they don't have to submit every application at once. If Rowan is ready to go, they can submit it on today. And then let's say Buckers, they're still working on something because they're fine-tuning an essay, they can submit it a week later. So it's just a great way to keep track of all their applications in one place.
If you're curious about it, they can create an account, just don't have them fill anything out.
Yeah.
It won't roll over for this class until August 1st. And then we align our boot camp to be that same week. So it goes live, and then your kids will be invited to come, and we'll help them learn more about it now that they can get it into their account.
So I'm just going to quickly go over all the different deadlines that are part of the application process. So when your child is doing the research right now, it's something to also bring up, like, is this a school you really want to go to? So for example, like Rutgers has an early action. So basically, it is the same application. The application doesn't look any different than if a student did a regular decision application. It's just, it is due earlier, and they find out earlier if they are accepted to that college. Early action restrictive is similar to early decision, but it's non-binding, and it is usually with private universities. And it means, for example, if Princeton has an early action restrictive, they can only apply early action to Princeton. They can't apply early action restrictive to any other private school that offers early action restrictive. The difference between early action restrictive and early decision is early action restrictive is non-binding. So they will find out early if they're accepted, but it doesn't mean that is the school that they have to go to. But I'm just going to use like those, Ivy League schools. If your child wants to apply to Harvard, Yale, and Princeton, they can't do all 3 early action restrictive, but they can do all 3 just early action. Early decision is similar to restrictive, it's just binding. So basically, they sign a contract. We also have a discussion with them before. We also have to sign that. We talk to them that they know that this is binding, and that basically if they get in, they are promising they're going to enroll in the school. So that's also something to think about. If they're on the fence between 2 schools and they're very similar, I would say don't do early decision to one just because they have that option. I would say at that point, encourage your child to do early action, because they're still going to find out early if they're in that school. It's just non-binding for them. Priority deadlines are similar to early action. You still find out early. It's just it's basically the same thing. It's just they say that you have more wiggle room about the application, and you can still apply after the priority deadline and find out, but they still encourage the student to get everything on time. Rolling admission, it's as you apply, the decisions get sent out. So a lot of schools, for example, I'm sure you guys heard of like Ivy Day, where all students find out that day if they got accepted, waitlisted, deferred, and they have to wait till that specific day to find out. With rolling, they review those applications as they come in. So for example, the University of Pittsburgh has rolling admission. The earlier they apply, the better. That being said, the pool is bigger at the beginning. As students apply, get smaller, and they have less room to accept the student. So if, for example, they really want to go to the University of Pittsburgh, the earlier they apply, the better, because most rolling deadlines are in like July, that they can still submit their applications. Does anybody have questions about the different? Yes.
What are the fees associated with applying?
What are the fees? What?
Fees associated with applying.
All the fees are the same for the applications. It doesn't matter if it's rolling or early action. The fees are the same. It's just the deadlines of submission. Like early action, the most common deadline is November 1st. While regular decision is usually, it can go anywhere from like January. Some schools even have like a March 1st deadline.
And what about when on this?
It really depends. I think it's like, I would say like an average of maybe like,
It's not a lot.
Some schools are free,
Yeah.
very few, some are like $30, 40, 50, but then some can get up to 75, 200.
and the fees are available on Naviance as well. If you click on the specific college, it will say the fee and also the deadlines that are coming up. So they can know which deadline and they can also see what kind of applications they have. Because some schools may not have early action or early decision, and that specific school lists the type of applications that accept and their deadlines. They're just not going to be that accurate right now, maybe. I would say probably while, like in August when they can open the Common App and start it, they can really dig in to see what that specific deadlines are for the specific school that they're interested in. Any other questions? Yes.
And for a school like it that has to go on
Yeah.
admission, the earlier the better, but what kind of date should we be wrapping our head around to like strive to get it in?
What I tell my students, and you guys can also, I say like aim for that early action deadline.
And what month are we talking?
November 1st.
November 1st.
Yes, it's the most common. There are some schools that have like a October 15th early action deadline, but the most common is November 1st.
November 1st.
Yes.
Also for scholarship money, merit aid, the earlier you get the application in, the better. Think of financial aid as like a big bucket of money. And the minute, especially for rolling admission schools, the minute they start letting kids in, those, hello, you got in, great, you know, those letters are also coming with their reward letters. So they're dipping into that bucket and they're giving kids money. So if you wait, that bucket's going to be a lot, you know, a lot
So you
smaller.
wouldn't really do anything before November 1st?
Rutgers has an early priority deadline.
Other
of
than the
October 1st.
early things, but
Correct.
generally speaking, November.
November is like, yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
I was just going to say, I just went through this with my son, and we found that if we went to the open houses, where you did a tour, they would waive the actual
Yes.
application fee, so it's worth it to do it and let them see the school, and then you waive the fee.
And
You
it's
can
the,
always ask for one too. I mean, they're not just doling them out, they might give you one if you ask.
and it's the same for the reps that come to our school. Often the students that attend get like a code to get an application fee.
I've also heard more and more schools saying that if you visit campus and you're accepted, you get a $1,000 scholarship for visiting.
For visiting.
Quick one. It only starts after the Common App is open, right?
Yeah, you can't apply.
Yeah, you
until-
can't apply.
Yeah,
And when
August
is that
1st.
happening?
August 1st.
Okay, and you mentioned in July, right, for applying? But
No,
that
I-
has to wait. right?
When I said July, usually like early admissions deadlines is like July. So for example, your student is going to be a graduate, the class of 2026. The rolling deadline is going to be July, like 28th of 2026. So if they have until July to apply for the start of fall, which is insane, but that's what it is. That's why it's rolling, so there's no like,
Actual deadline.
yeah.
And it rhymes, so you apply by July.
Apply no later than
Wait,
July.
All right, we gotta get these kids. We have a panel of students that want to talk to you, so.
All right, so I'll be pretty quickly through this. We've talked about a lot of the 4 years, the typical undergraduate programs. Within the county, we have a great relationship with Mercer County Community College. This application process is a little bit different. If you were to just go on Mercer County's website, there's a big green apply button at the top. You press the button, make your account, pick out your program, and start your application right there. The nice thing about Mercer County is there are no test scores required. There is no Common App. There is no essay. There are no letter of recs required. Right? They're looking at that student's GPA. They're looking at see what that program looks like for them, and they're given their assessment of either bringing you in or not. The nice thing too, in the link that'll be shared out with everyone, Mercer County has a ginormous list of colleges that they have agreements with. So if your plan is to go to Mercer County, save some money, start on your degree early, stay local, stay at home, be whatever that be, right? There's a nice outlet of colleges that have different programs, different things that they accept all credits from, some credits from. But this link right here takes you right to Mercer County's website. after you click on it, you'll see the different colleges. If there's program-specific ones for different colleges, it'll let you know right there. The nice thing too is they'll have an advisor at Mercer County, similar to us, like as school counselors at the college, that when they go in, they'll meet with someone, go over what their game plan kind of looks like, and they'll be there to guide them through their application up until that 4-year window. If Mercer County's the beginning and the end for that student, that's completely okay. They'll still have an advisor there to help them pick out their classes and obtain their degree. That advisor is also going to be there to help them get ready for that 4-year school if that's the path that they're ready for. Awesome. Oh, yes.
Mercer County has 170 what they call matriculation agreements.
Yes. Yes. That's, yes.
What happens is they just rubber stamp. They're pre-approved. So, like engineering is a big program at Mercer County, and they go to Drexel.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing is that Mercer County, at maximum for a full year, is about $5,000. And they have tons of money for scholarships, so you can go to Mercer County. They have a program, it's a CCOG, I think it's called the Governor's Program, where you can actually go there almost for free right now. And
right.
The other thing is Rutgers has a campus at Mercer County. I know a lot of people don't know that. They have a 3-for-1 program where you can go 3 years at Mercer for the same tuition, and then just 1 year at Rutgers. So
So you're diplomas from Rutgers.
yeah,
Right.
So the degrees are from Rutgers.
what's that?
The degrees are from Rutgers.
Rutgers.
Right.
Degrees from Rutgers,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep. So kind of like we've been over tonight, just kind of want to go over what that senior college boot camp looks like in August. Again, that's going to be that first week in August. We really haven't had our date picked out specifically yet, but that's when we're going to be meeting. We have college admissions come in. They talk about the college admissions process from the school. I think that's extremely beneficial for the kids to hear, because they hear it from us as the counselors, they hear it from their friends, they've gone on the different visits, but it's nice to get that perspective from someone actually in the admissions office to talk about what that process looks like and what they're looking for. Then we kind of take over, we set them up with their Common App account. The nice thing with Common App and Naviance is we're able to link the two together. So we handle all of the school stuff on Naviance, all their personal stuff is on the Common App. When they're ready to send that application, it's already connected, and all of that material is going together on the same application. So we go in, we set them up with their Common App account, show them the different questions that might be tricky for some of the students, sign into their Naviance, link the two together, go over the letter of recommendations if they haven't done it yet, just to make sure that they have those sent out. And then we give them some time to work on those brag sheets if they haven't had time to complete it. So when we do come back to school, it's very hustle and bustle for the seniors in the beginning, because they have their meetings looking to pick out the different schools. What am I missing? We have the college visits. They're meeting with their counselor to make sure that we have everything we need. And this is just a nice little jump start to kind of take a little bit of that stress and that pressure off when they return back to school. And then that's really it. We kind of really go over the deadlines, so when they come in, they're ready to go, and everyone's on the same page. We're prepared, we're ready, and our number one goal, applying to college and the college application process can be a very stressful time, both for families and students. And our number one goal is to make it as stress-free as possible and answer as many questions as we possibly can to make it as easy and stress-free. All right? Yes?
So I wrote that if I'm ready to in May or June to ask for the letters of recommendation. However, I'm saying in the boot camp it's gonna happen in August.
Yes.
So do we start earlier? Do we make
the-
you do everything?
The letters of recommendation in the boot camp is just to ensure that the students have sent it out. So we've met with a lot of the juniors already as part of our scheduling and gone over the process of most of the things that we're talking about now. That transcript request during that August portion is more just to ensure that the students have sent those
So
out.
we should take care of all of
Yeah.
it before they get to the boot camp.
Yes, yeah. But the biggest thing is the Common App and Naviance, and us like setting them up with their Common App account and linking it to their Naviance. But the letters of recommendation or brag sheet, yeah, we're looking to have that completed a little bit before summer break or over summer break before we come back in August. Yep. Anything else? Awesome.
Well, hopefully you have more questions, because we have some awesome seniors who are here taking time out of their busy evening to talk to you guys about their experience with applying to college, to answer questions from the student's perspective. We have Piper, we have Fatima, we have Emily, Jack, Lacone, and Bella. All right, so these are seniors that have gone through the process. They have a wealth of information. I have questions that I could lead with, unless you folks have something that you want to ask to start it off. If not, I can start it off. There we go.
What was the most helpful thing that your parent did or could do, I guess, in this process for you?
She asked, what was the most important thing or most helpful thing that your parent did for you that helped you through this process? And not everybody has to answer, so if you want to not answer, then
One at a time, one at a time.
right. That's deep, man. That's deep.
I'd say I will say I have a twin. We're both procrastinators. If you know your kid will procrastinate a lot, remind them. It doesn't have to be every day. You don't have to, every time you see them in their room, you don't have to say, hey, get on this, but just remind them. And make sure you're helping them as much as possible. The amount of times I handed my computer to my dad to help me answer questions, to fill out FAFSA, all that, it's just be there, make sure they can ask you questions as a parent, and it takes off a lot of stress on them, I'm sure.
Yeah, I actually couldn't agree more with that. I kind of have my mom remind me about certain due dates and stuff, just tell her ahead of time, and it just takes a lot of the stress off me having someone else there to make sure that I don't forget the important dates and stuff, because you kind of pile up a lot of those as you go through the process.
I think being really supportive and having faith in me also helped me out a little bit, because I was uncertain about some schools, but my parents always made sure that I'm good enough for them and my grades were fine.
I'd say bring your kid to as many college tours that you can, that you have the time to do. Just going with them, even if they have a license and stuff, just go with them and take them and visit and actually see what it's like there.
I would also say hear children out, because I hear that a lot of parents are being pushy about the major they're doing or the college you want your kid to go to. But I feel like it's very important for your kid to like the college and do what they want to do. So yeah.
And that'll make them more enthusiastic about the whole thing.
I would just say also what Bella said, college tours, I think I've probably toured over 15 schools at this point, but honestly it was so helpful because I got to see if I was more into a big school or a small school, and also the demonstrated interest is a huge part. So honestly I think it kind of played a role into me getting into some of the schools that I did. So yeah.
Would you guys mind sharing, if you do know where you're going, or if you're deciding between schools, would you mind sharing that with us?
Yeah, so I'm committed to Rowan, so I know I'm going there.
I have decided on Rutgers. I'm not committed yet, but I'm really certain I'm going there.
Honors college.
Yeah, the honors college. I'm deciding between Lehigh and Bucknell, but I haven't decided yet.
You're wearing a sweatshirt.
Yeah.
I'm deciding between James Madison and UMass Amherst, and I have visits to both of those schools in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, I'm committed to Stockton University.
Are you doing anything special at Stockton?
Playing soccer.
And I'm going to Rutgers, I think.
Did you guys, how many schools did you apply to? I think that's always a question, how many should we apply to? And did you utilize any early applications? Did you hit any of those early deadlines? Or were you just more laid back and just kind of waited for a regular decision? What was your strategy?
Yeah, so I applied to about roughly 6 schools, and I will say freshman year I did not have the best grades, and since then my grades have just climbed in numbers, and one of my biggest supporters has actually been Miss Gonzalez. I did not know if I was going to get into any colleges, and from day one, she's been confident in my ability to get into Rowan in any other school that I that I had interest in. So I will say, you know, I have a cousin who applied to like 50 schools. That's outrageous. Don't make your kids do that, please. But you know, have your reach schools, have your safety schools. I'm sure you've all heard that. And do as early as you can. It does not hurt. If I waited, I procrastinated. And not only does it look good for your student or for your child to apply early, but also it gives them that peace and that state of mind to have that in their back pocket and be like, okay, I know I was accepted here and I know I want to go here or I have the option to go here. It really just, it solves a lot of stress to have that answer, so.
I personally applied to 7 schools and I did half of them early and the rest I did regular just to perfect my application and make sure that everything was fine in order to turn it in.
I applied to 18 schools, which was definitely way too many. I don't recommend doing it. I think like when I was applying to them, I was just really nervous about like not getting into the schools I wanted to, so I tried to like have as many options as possible. I also applied early action for all of the ones that offered it, but like half the schools I applied to didn't have it. And I think applying early action is good because like you kind of get a sense of like the types of schools you're going to be getting into and the ones like that you're not going to be getting into. But like also, it definitely can be discouraging because like I got like deferred from like majority of the schools I applied early action to, and it was kind of like scary because I was like I didn't know if I was going to be getting into schools. But like honestly, it all works out. So you just got to keep an open mindset throughout it all.
Yeah, I applied to 6 schools, I think, and like her, it was probably about half of them I applied early action, and then the rest were regular decision. I think that if you can apply early action, it's probably for the best just to show the extra interest.
Yeah, so for me it was a little different because I had like reduced lunch, and I also encourage everybody to, if you think you qualify, try to apply for reduced lunch, even if you're going to be a senior, because I applied when I was a senior, so I didn't even have lunch, I had it early out. But it helps because like they pay for all your applications. They waive your fees, so usually the application is like $50, so I applied everywhere for free. But I would definitely say not to apply to like colleges that you know you're not going to, because I applied to like schools that I knew I for sure wasn't going to, but I just wanted to see if I got in. And I would definitely say to do early action because then you could just see earlier if you got into the school, and yeah.
Yeah, I honestly don't even remember how many I applied to because I also have reduced lunch and I just applied everywhere. But I say apply to as many as you can, but don't like burn yourself out. Like prioritize like which schools you want the most, I guess, and what you can afford. But yeah.
So for the applicants playing soccer in school, did you find that the application process was different for you versus someone who's not necessarily looking to be a student athlete? Because I have heard that a lot of times, like, right, you want to get in there and you want to apply early and you want to get all your information early on, whereas sometimes for a student athlete, there are other considerations. So you want to connect with a coach and you want to kind of see where your fit is and do they want you on their team? Do you fill a hole on their team? So did the process change for you at all?
Well, for some schools I got offers, so like I knew I was getting into them. So like I didn't really, I still tried, but I knew I was getting into them. But for the schools that I was talking to, but I didn't know if they were offered me yet, I just I honestly, it didn't change for me. I just did what I did for other schools. Because for a lot of schools, like they were D1 schools, so I knew I was probably not going to play there. So most of my schools I applied were like Rutgers, like I applied to Syracuse. I knew I wasn't going to play soccer there, so I just applied there like as a regular student. And for the schools like Stockton, I knew I was going to get in, but I still put all of my effort just to know for sure that I'm getting into it, you know, just to make sure.
A good point, though, in terms of if any of your kids are looking to play at the college level, or if they had another special consideration, like if they're applying to an art program or a dance program, a performance program. There's going to be other parts of the application process that will be different for those students. Okay, you might have to do a portfolio. In addition to the application, you might have to go to auditions that happen much earlier than what the regular deadlines are. So if you have a child that has one of these special considerations, make sure that the child's counselor knows this, so they can help you to navigate, because a lot of those things have to happen early on, much earlier on than when regular applications are due. How did you stay organized? Because there's a lot, besides leaning on your parents, which I know is a helpful thing, but how did you personally stay organized? There's a lot of deadlines, a lot of things to remember. So did you use any strategies that were helpful?
Yeah, so obviously parents, but a lot of times it was just keeping things in one place, whether that's a Notes app, a Google Doc. On my computer, I had a folder tab that was just full of all of my portals and all the links that you would ever need possible for college, because it's just so much, it's easier to check them, one, which is very important, and two, you always know where it is. So I encourage you to encourage your kids to just make just one place for all of the links and all of the documents that they would need. Even if you want to just have a Google Drive folder for all your, applications and for your, essays, just everything. And, again, parents, it's very helpful to remind your kids of important dates, because it's just, kids have school, they have important dates of tests and essays that are due, and then on top of that you have college, and a lot of times college applications take place right at the end of school and right at the beginning of school, which is the most stressful part for students. So, yeah.
For me personally, I think Common App helped a lot, having everything in that one place just to see what you need to do. But me personally, I created a Google Sheet just with all my colleges that I was applying to or interested in, the deadlines for them, like if there's any school-specific questions or supplementals, just having everything in that one thing I can look at and know when to complete it and when I need to have it done by. But I feel like also for students, we're on our phones constantly, so like set that reminder for your like due date or like when you want to get things done by, because you will be seeing it like all the time on your phone.
For me, I also made a spreadsheet, and in terms of like staying organized, I tried to like split up like the applications, like because it can be a lot to try to balance like schoolwork and college applications. So I would give a few days to work on one application, and then like the next few days do another one, and that just kind of helped me stay organized. And I would do it in order of like when the application was due. So if I had one due like November 1st, I'd do that one before like one that was due like in January. And I just found it to be like very effective and helpful.
Yeah, so I agree with them. Having like a Notes app or a Google Doc or something where you can keep all the logins and information for all the separate portals for your colleges is really important. I also bought a whiteboard for my room that I just write everything on. It's kind of a nice place that it's big, it's in my face, so I won't forget any of the stuff that I have to do, have all my dates outlined on there, and it's a simple way to stay organized.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Notes are really helpful. I would also say that like I spent a little bit of time every day on Common App. Like you could get the app on your phone, which is like very simple. Like it's so simple, it tells you literally everything to do. So I just spent like even 30 minutes of the day. Like in the beginning of the year, I was so like college application mode, so that I didn't even have to remind myself about Common App. So I just had it in my mind when I had like free time, like doing nothing, basically just went on Common App and just finished a little bit of each application.
Honestly, I think the most important thing is to have a calendar, because like most of the dates are around the same time, but you can still confuse things, especially if you're applying to specific programs or scholarships at the same time. Like everybody has different deadlines. So I think just having a reminder of when stuff is due is probably one of the most important things.
We have a question here.
How did you manage your schoolwork when your son reached fifth grade? How did you, what was the strategy for making sure you stayed on top of your current classwork and balancing
the demand.
So the question is like, how do they balance getting all of this accomplished while also trying to maintain good grades and the like?
For me personally,
Maybe have 2 or 3 of you answer just so that we can get to one more.
For me, although it's not like ideal, I spent a lot of like my weekends like in like the early months like doing like Common App and like working on college applications because like I was playing field hockey and I was trying to get good grades in my classes. So I would prioritize like school during like the school week because like it just like for me it was more important to be getting like my assignments done and stuff. And like although it was like kind of annoying to give up some of your weekend time, if you like manage your time well and just like devote like a certain like amount of hours a day or something to work on it, it honestly is like really helpful. And a lot of like the supplemental essays and stuff that you do for colleges, like you like can like kind of use them for other ones. And like once you like start your Common App and fill out like the Common App like activities and all that stuff, honestly the rest of it is like not that time consuming. So that's basically what I did.
For me, I utilized any free time I had, whether it was on the weekends or during the school day in the study hall. Utilize all your free time. I know some people have times where you're just like laying around doing nothing. Use that time and like answer a few school-specific questions or start your supplemental essays. Utilize free time.
You guys head out to lunch, right? So that does also, they do have a little bit more time carved into their day as seniors, so that's true. Anybody else?
I'd also say, like, I knew that I knew beforehand that I'm not someone who can balance that. Like, if I had to do all that at the same time, I wouldn't be able to. So I had my recommendations done before the school year started. Like, I had as much as I could with, like, that part done. And it was still, obviously, I still had to balance some stuff, but, like, if you can do stuff in the summer, or at least start having ideas for your college essay and stuff like that before the school year starts, that'll make it a lot easier, too.
That's actually a really good point about the recommendation letters because, like I said, I have a twin, and we both went down very different routes. I had mine requested before junior year even ended, and she asked for hers, I believe, a month or 2 before her applications were due, which not only puts stress on you, it puts stress on the teacher, and some teachers will straight up tell you, no, I do not have time for this, I cannot write you right. And also, you know, this is a letter of recommendation that's representing you as a student. You want them to be able to say good things and to be able to have that time to write that good letter for you. So that's another thing, make sure your letter of recommendation requests are submitted, not only in Naviance, but just also have your kid go up and talk to the teacher in person. In person is so much better than an email, so yeah.
To finish up, what's the best piece of advice that you've received that you would like to pass on about this process? Or even something, maybe not piece of advice, but even something you've learned to impart on these good people?
I mean, this is pretty broad, but like, it's worth it. It really kind of sucks in the moment sometimes, and there were so many days where I just thought like, geez, I really wish I wasn't doing this, but having gotten towards the end of it now, it's so fulfilling to finally feel like you've like completed your education, and then you have all this time to relax and enjoy the rest of the school year. So it's like, I guess just in the moments where you feel like it really sucks, it's all worth it at the end.
I think the best piece of advice I got was to start early. Start applying for scholarships as soon as possible because that can help bring down your cost a little bit. The Common App prompts, I'm pretty sure they're the same this year. Start looking at the prompts early, looking at what you want to answer, what you want to write about, and even if there's like not specific to the prompts, you can write about whatever you want to write about. So start early and start planning really soon.
I would say to just like trust the process because there were definitely times where I thought I wasn't getting into any colleges and like I was like crying every night and it was not fun. But I ended up getting into some of my top choices and it all worked out in the end. So just don't get discouraged after like one like deferral or wait list because it all worked out.
I would say to use all the resources that are provided to you. Like you have all the scholarships, you could do Common App. It seems like it's so hard, but honestly, like everything's there for you and it's so simple. And also like, as for me, like the freshman year and the sophomore year, like I moved from another country, so I didn't really know the language. So my grades are really bad freshman and sophomore year. And I was also scared that I wasn't getting into colleges. But I used like all the other things, like for example in the Common App, you don't have to just have good grades. There's also like a personal essay that could really help you, like the activities that you did, the organizations that you joined. So yeah, consider everything.
I have a question. Our kids will have them saying the same things they are telling us, because all of this is awesome, but if I bring it to my son, I'm the mother, right? So, but if he hears from them, I would love my kids to actually hear what I heard from them.
Yeah,
Will they have that opportunity?
We can try to, would you be willing to speak to these?
Yeah, I would love that.
So we've done something like that in the past. I don't think it happened last year. But
I just think that would help me.
Yeah. But we could certainly do something like this, and maybe during resources or something, if you guys are, we'd have to set it up, and we have to have good.
Well, I'm asking you guys to accept.
Yeah. But yeah, I agree with you, that they learn more from their peers than they do from us. So what you say is very important and powerful and impactful.
We might invite all of our panel to this summer's boot camp if they're going to be around. To be able to speak to your kids when your kids come to our college day this summer.
Okay, that's a great idea. So we'll follow up with them for sure. But if I heard, I think it was Emily, maybe somebody else as well. A couple of times I heard, trust the process. It's going to work out. It's going to be okay. And that's what we hope you kind of take away from this as well. Yes, it's a lot of information. There's a lot of stuff to kind of take in, but we're here to help, and we will walk you through this as best we can. Please access your counselors. We're here to help, and just trust that it will work out. Your child will land somewhere and they'll be where they're supposed to be, and they're going to be great. Sorry. Go ahead. Piper, go ahead.
Okay. I will say, as parents, because a lot of us were talking about what we can do ourselves, but as parents, just be as supportive as possible. I've been very lucky with parents, and I've quite enjoyed the car rides that I've gotten to talk to my dad about. He's been, support them with whatever path they want to go down. I had no idea what I wanted to do a year ago, and now I am dead set on psychology and social work, and that's something that I'm really passionate about. And I don't think I would have gotten there without the support of my parents and the many conversations we had about all the different options and paths, because even as a junior, it can be very scary to be, you have all these options, these schools, these paths. You can go 10 billion miles away, or you can be in state, and there's all these options, and it's very unknown. And so just give your kids the knowledge that they have your support, and that there's so many different paths that they can go down, and that no matter what, you're willing to support them through that. And that just means so much. And I don't think I've ever expressed that to my parents, but I will say they really, yeah, he's right there. And so's my mom, but she'll hate that I pointed that out, so. So yeah, just be as supportive as you can, because it means so much to be able to have your parents be like, yes, you got this, you just, and I will say Ms. Gonzalez has been very supportive as well. I did not think I was going to get into colleges.
Ms. G.
Can I add a pro tip? That is my daughter. This is something we have multiple daughters now make it to college, and we're very proud of that. But we didn't realize this in one of our older daughters. Please remember this. Once they start getting the acceptances, especially private schools, one of the private schools, which is our daughter's #1 choice, she's a tearful night saying, I really want to go there. And we're like, it's so expensive. I don't remember where we found out. She got acceptances to other schools. We sent those acceptances to Sarah Lawrence. they matched it. They dropped her tuition by $11,000 from their original offer. We found out since then, this is not uncommon, especially with private schools.
That's
So
also another
leverage
thing.
them, leverage the schools against it for your kid to go to a place, you know. They ended up giving her $59,000 a year in scholarships. That was nothing close to what they originally offered her.
That's another thing. The school actually sends out a weekly email of all the scholarships that we find, that they find. And I urge you to just fill them out. A lot of them are just submitting an essay or talking about your experience. Find really niche things. Maybe your kid's really passionate about tuba and there's a scholarship for tuba players. Have them apply. It does not hurt. It takes anywhere from 5 to maybe 30 minutes max. Depends on how complicated it is. But just apply.
You can start looking at those scholarship bulletins now. A lot of them every year, they're the same ones, they just change the deadline. So you can access that at Naviance and see. Your child can't apply now as a junior, but in all likelihood, that same scholarship will be available next year around the same time period. And you can already keep track of those things. Sorry, we had one question here.
No, I didn't have a question.
Oh.
I was going to make a suggestion. I went to school with our pages a long time ago, and people used to talk face-to-face about it. I was in one of them. What I think might be helpful in terms of giving you perspective on your own experience and the value of that, is to do something. We did just lunch. When I was in high school, and we did it based on who your advisor was. So it meant that the advisees had a relationship. The advisees who had this individual help them through a process to give report. Talk to the advisees who are coming up on that process. And it was called Just Lunch, and it was just students. And it was, at the time, now, device free, that was called. You have a lunch, and what you're talking about is how you feel about that process, any tips you have. People might hit the same lows and they might hit the same highs. It's a wonderful way to also build community around the process and extending beyond that year. So if you tell us to make that work even once or twice, it's a great opportunity.
Okay, thank you folks for coming. Thank you. We appreciate it.